Sarah Martinez stood at the edge of the pier, watching the morning sun cast long shadows across the naval base. The salty air filled her lungs as she adjusted her uniform one last time, before her final day of service. After 12 years in the Navy, she thought she had seen everything. She was wrong. It started 3 months earlier when Sarah was assigned to a classified project at the Norfolk Naval Base. The assignment came with strict orders and even stricter security clearances. She would be working in a restricted section of the base that most sailors never knew existed. The building had no windows, no signs, and guards who never smiled. On her first day, Commander Jackson briefed her on what seemed like routine maintenance work. They needed someone with her technical expertise to inspect and repair equipment in the lower levels of the facility. Sarah had always been good with her hands, fixing everything from radar systems to submarine engines. This job seemed straightforward enough. The elevator descended deeper than Sarah expected. When the doors opened, she found herself in a corridor lined with steel doors, each marked only with numbers. The air smelled different down here, metallic and cold. Her footsteps echoed as she followed Commander Jackson to door 47. Inside, she discovered a workshop filled with equipment she had never seen before. Strange devices lined the walls, their purposes unclear. In the center of the room sat a large metal table with what appeared to be fragments of something that definitely was not military standard issue. The pieces were smooth, almost liquid-looking, and seemed to shimmer under the harsh fluorescent lights. Commander Jackson handed her a thick manual and pointed to the fragments. Her job was simple: document everything, take precise measurements, and help the research team understand how these pieces fit together. What she was not told was where these fragments came from or why they seemed to pulse with their own internal light. Over the following weeks, Sarah worked diligently on the project. She photographed every angle, measured every dimension, and slowly began to see patterns in the fragments. They were definitely not made of any material she recognized from her years of naval training. The metal was lighter than aluminum but stronger than steel. When she touched it, it felt warm, almost alive. The research team consisted of civilians who rarely spoke to her directly. They whispered among themselves, taking notes and conducting tests that Sarah was not allowed to observe. Dr. Williams, the lead scientist, seemed particularly nervous whenever Sarah was around. He would quickly cover his work and change the subject if she asked questions. Sarah began to notice other strange things about the project. Security cameras watched her every move, even in areas where cameras were typically not allowed. Her phone was confiscated each morning and returned only when she left the building. She was required to shower and change clothes before entering and leaving the restricted area. Most disturbing of all, Sarah started experiencing unusual symptoms. She felt dizzy at times, and her skin began to develop a faint rash where she had direct contact with the fragments. When she mentioned this to the medical officer, she was given a standard cream and told it was probably just stress from working in the underground facility. The breakthrough came on a Tuesday morning in her 8th week on the project. While examining a particularly large fragment under a magnifying glass, Sarah noticed something that made her heart race. There were markings on the surface, symbols that looked almost like writing. But this was not any human language she had ever seen. The symbols seemed to move and shift when she was not looking directly at them. Sarah rubbed her eyes, thinking the long hours were playing tricks on her vision. But when she looked again, the symbols were still there, still moving, still completely alien. That evening, Sarah made a decision that would change everything. Instead of reporting her discovery immediately, she decided to document it herself first. Using her phone during her lunch break outside the facility, she researched similar markings online. What she found made her blood run cold. The symbols matched descriptions from declassified documents about unidentified aerial phenomena investigations. Files that had been released years earlier contained sketches of identical markings found at crash sites that the military had initially denied existed. Sarah realized she was not just working on routine maintenance. She was helping to reverse engineer technology that was not of this world. As she prepared to return to work the next morning, Sarah noticed a black sedan parked across from her apartment building. The same car had been there for 3 days. When she looked out her window, she could see 2 figures sitting inside, watching her building. The Navy was keeping tabs on her even during her off hours. Sarah knew she had stumbled onto something massive, something that powerful people wanted to keep secret. The fragments, the strange symptoms, The excessive security and now the surveillance all pointed to one terrifying conclusion. The Navy had possession of technology that should not exist, and they were willing to go to great lengths to keep it hidden. Standing on the pier now, 3 months later, Sarah touched the spot on her lower back where the evidence was hidden. The small device she had managed to smuggle out contained photographs and measurements that would prove everything. The tattoo covering it was fresh, the ink still tender, but it hid the secret perfectly. She had spent weeks planning this moment, knowing that once she revealed what she knew, there would be no going back. The Navy would deny everything, discredit her, and possibly worse. But Sarah had made a promise to herself and to the truth. Some secrets were too important to keep buried in the basement of a naval facility. The morning sun climbed higher as Sarah took one last look at the base that had been her home for over a decade. Today, everything would change. Today, she would lift her shirt and show the world what the Navy never wanted anyone to see. Sarah walked into the small coffee shop 3 blocks from the naval base, her heart pounding with each step. She had chosen this location carefully. It was far enough from the base to avoid immediate attention, but close enough that her presence would not seem suspicious. The journalist she was meeting had a reputation for handling sensitive stories with care and protecting sources at any cost. Marcus Webb sat in the corner booth, exactly as they had arranged through encrypted messages. He was younger than Sarah expected, probably in his early 30s, with the kind of tired eyes that came from years of chasing stories that powerful people preferred to keep buried. A laptop bag sat beside him and his fingers drummed nervously on the table. Sarah ordered a black coffee and sat across from Marcus, her back to the wall so she could watch the entrance. The morning rush was in full swing, providing perfect cover for their conversation. Business people hurried in and out, focused on their own lives, unaware that the woman in the corner was about to reveal one of the biggest secrets in modern military history. Marcus studied her face carefully. In his line of work, he had learned to read people quickly. Sarah had the bearing of a career military officer, but something in her eyes spoke of deep concern, even fear. This was not someone seeking attention or trying to profit from false claims. This was someone whose conscience would not let her sleep at night. Sarah pulled out her phone and showed Marcus the encrypted folder she had prepared. Inside were dozens of photographs she had managed to take during her time on the project. The images showed the metallic fragments from various angles, close-ups of the strange symbols, and documentation of the testing procedures she had witnessed. The photos were remarkable, but Marcus had seen sophisticated hoaxes before. What caught his attention was the technical detail in Sarah's documentation. She had included precise measurements, material analysis notes, and cross-references to existing military equipment that proved her access to restricted areas. This level of detail would be nearly impossible to fabricate. Marcus listened as Sarah explained the project in careful detail. She described the underground facility, the unusual security measures, and the civilian research team working around the clock to understand technology that defied conventional physics. Her story was consistent, detailed, and delivered with the straightforward manner of someone reporting facts rather than spinning tales. The most compelling evidence came when Sarah described her physical symptoms. She had documented the skin irritation, the dizzy spells, and the strange tingling sensation she felt when working with the fragments. Medical records from the base showed she had been treated for unexplained dermatitis, but the real cause had been covered up in her official file. Marcus asked the hard questions he had to ask. Why was she coming forward now? What did she hope to achieve? Did she understand the consequences of making these allegations? Sarah answered each question honestly. She was retiring from the Navy anyway. Her conscience would not let her stay silent, and she believed the public had a right to know about technology that could change the world. The conversation was interrupted when Sarah noticed a familiar face at the counter. Petty Officer Rodriguez from the base was ordering coffee, his eyes scanning the room casually. Sarah and Rodriguez had worked together before, but his presence here was too much of a coincidence. The surveillance team had found them. Sarah excused herself to use the restroom, and Marcus understood immediately. They had been discovered, and their meeting needed to end quickly. Sarah slipped Marcus a small flash drive containing additional evidence, including audio recordings she had made of Dr. Williams discussing the project with his team. In the restroom, Sarah made a quick decision that would prove crucial later. She used her phone to take a photograph of the small device hidden beneath her tattoo. The image clearly showed the metallic object embedded in her skin, along with the intricate tattoo designed to conceal it. She sent the photo to Marcus through their secure communication channel. When Sarah returned to the table, Marcus was already packing his laptop. They said goodbye like old friends catching up, nothing more. Rodriguez finished his coffee and left without acknowledging Sarah, but she knew he had been there to confirm her location. The surveillance was tightening. Over the next few days, Marcus worked frantically to verify Sarah's claims. He reached out to former military personnel, scientists, and government officials who might be willing to speak about classified projects. Most refused to talk, but a few confirmed that unusual research was indeed being conducted at various military facilities. Dr. Elena Vasquez, a former Pentagon consultant, agreed to meet with Marcus on condition of anonymity. She had worked on similar projects in the past and was familiar with the type of technology Sarah described. Dr. Vasquez confirmed that the military had been investigating unexplained materials for decades, often in partnership with private defense contractors. The breakthrough came when Marcus connected with James Morrison, a retired Air Force colonel who had overseen classified recovery operations in the 1990s. Morrison was dying of cancer and felt compelled to speak the truth before his time ran out. He confirmed that the military had indeed recovered technology that appeared to be of non-human origin. Morrison described missions to retrieve unusual debris from crash sites, always under cover of conventional military exercises. The materials were transported to various research facilities, including the one where Sarah had worked. Teams of scientists spent years trying to understand and replicate the technology, with limited success. The most shocking revelation came when Morrison showed Marcus classified documents he had kept as insurance. The papers detailed a decades-long program to reverse engineer advanced propulsion systems, energy storage devices, and materials with properties that current science could not explain. The program had cost billions of dollars and involved thousands of personnel, all sworn to secrecy. Marcus now had enough evidence to write the story, but he knew the consequences would be severe. Sarah would face criminal charges for violating her security clearance. Government officials would deny everything and attack the credibility of anyone involved. The story would be dismissed as conspiracy theory by mainstream media. Sarah had anticipated this reaction. During their second meeting, held in a different location with even more security precautions, she told Marcus about the final piece of evidence. The device hidden beneath her tattoo contained not just photographs and measurements, but actual samples of the mysterious material. She had managed to collect microscopic particles of the fragments during her work, embedding them in a small container that she then had surgically implanted beneath her skin. The tattoo served as both camouflage and symbolic statement. She was literally wearing the evidence of the Navy's greatest secret. The plan was simple but dangerous. Sarah would publicly reveal the implanted device during a press conference, providing undeniable physical evidence of the technology she described. Scientists would be able to analyze the samples and confirm their unusual properties. The Navy would be forced to address the allegations directly. As the date for the press conference approached, Sarah noticed increased surveillance around her apartment and daily routine. Black sedans followed her to the grocery store. Her phone calls were clearly being monitored. New security personnel appeared at the base asking questions about her work and associations. The pressure was building, but Sarah remained committed to revealing the truth. She had crossed a line from which there was no return. The Navy's greatest secret would soon be exposed, hidden no longer beneath layers of classification and denial. The world was about to learn what she had discovered in the depths of a restricted military facility. The press conference was scheduled for Thursday morning at the downtown community center. Marcus had spent weeks reaching out to journalists, scientists, and government accountability advocates who would attend and ask the right questions. The venue was chosen deliberately, public enough to ensure safety through visibility, but small enough to maintain some control over the proceedings. Sarah spent the night before at a safe house arranged by Marcus and his contacts in the investigative journalism community. She barely slept, running through her statement over and over in her mind. Tomorrow she would stand before cameras and reveal evidence that could change humanity's understanding of technology and our place in the universe. At 6 a.m, Sarah's phone buzzed with an urgent message from Marcus. Government agents had visited the community center during the night, claiming there was a gas leak that required immediate evacuation an indefinite closure of the building. The press conference would have to be moved, but every alternative venue they contacted suddenly became unavailable due to various last-minute complications. The pattern was clear. Someone with significant power was working to prevent the press conference from happening. Phone calls were being intercepted, venues were being pressured to cancel, and several journalists who had planned to attend were receiving warnings from their editors about pursuing the story further. Sarah and Marcus met at a small diner to discuss their options. The surveillance was now obvious rather than covert. Two agents sat at a corner table making no attempt to hide their presence. A van with tinted windows was parked across the street. The message was clear. They were being watched and any attempt to go public would be stopped. Dr. Vasquez called Marcus with disturbing news. Her former colleagues at the Pentagon had reached out to warn her about associating with the story. Government contracts worth millions of dollars were at stake, and anyone connected to the leaked information would face serious consequences. The pressure campaign was expanding beyond Sarah to include anyone willing to support her claims. Despite the obstacles, Sarah remained determined to proceed. She suggested a different approach. Instead of a formal press conference, they would use social media and online platforms to release the evidence simultaneously across multiple channels. The internet was harder to control than traditional media, and the story could spread faster than authorities could contain it. Marcus worked through his network of contacts to coordinate the online release. Independent journalists, bloggers, and documentary filmmakers agreed to publish the evidence at exactly the same time, making it impossible to suppress all coverage simultaneously. The strategy was to overwhelm the system with too many sources to shut down effectively. The plan required Sarah to create a video statement that would accompany the documentary evidence. In the video, she would explain her background, describe the classified project, and then reveal the device implanted beneath her tattoo. The physical evidence would be undeniable, forcing official responses and scientific analysis. Sarah recorded the video in Marcus's apartment. Speaking directly to the camera with the same straightforward manner she had used during their first meeting, she explained her 12 years of naval service, her work on the classified project, and her decision to come forward despite the personal risks involved. The most dramatic moment came when Sarah lifted her shirt to reveal the tattoo on her lower back. The design was intricate, a nautical compass surrounded by geometric patterns that seemed to shimmer slightly under the camera lights. She explained that beneath the ink lay a small titanium container, holding samples of material that should not exist according to current scientific understanding. Using a small handheld scanner borrowed from a medical supply company, Sarah demonstrated that the implanted device was real and metallic. The scanner's display clearly showed the foreign object beneath her skin, roughly the size of a small coin, and positioned precisely where the center of the compass tattoo indicated. Sarah went on to explain how she had managed to collect and hide the samples during her final weeks working on the project. She had used her access to the testing equipment to scrape microscopic particles from the fragments, collecting them in a small container originally designed for medical implants. A sympathetic tattoo artist with military connections had helped her embed the container beneath her skin during what appeared to be a routine tattoo session. The video concluded with Sarah's direct challenge to the Navy and the Department of Defense. She called for immediate disclosure of all research related to recovered non-human technology, independent scientific analysis of the materials she had documented, and protection for other personnel who might have knowledge of similar projects. As the video upload completed and the coordinated release began, Sarah and Marcus watched the story spread across social media platforms. Within minutes, the hashtag they had created was trending. Independent news outlets picked up the story, and scientists around the world began requesting access to analyze the implanted samples. The official response came faster than expected. The Navy issued a statement denying the existence of any classified project matching Sarah's description. They claimed she had been working on routine maintenance of conventional equipment and suggested she might be suffering from psychological stress related to her impending retirement from military service. The Pentagon followed with their own statement, dismissing the evidence as fabricated and questioning Sarah's mental health. They pointed to inconsistencies in some of the technical details she had provided, though these inconsistencies were actually deliberate alterations she had made to protect ongoing operations and personnel still working on related projects. Government-friendly media outlets began attacking Sarah's credibility, focusing on minor discrepancies in her service record and suggesting she was seeking attention or financial gain. The familiar pattern of denial and character assassination was unfolding exactly as Sarah and Marcus had predicted. However, the online response was overwhelmingly supportive. Military veterans spoke out about their own experiences with unexplained technology and excessive security measures. Scientists examined the photographs and measurements Sarah had provided, noting details that would be extremely difficult to fabricate convincingly. Dr. Robert Chen, a materials scientist at MIT, announced his willingness to analyze the implanted samples using non-invasive scanning techniques. He had developed new methods for examining foreign objects within living tissue without requiring surgical removal. His offer to conduct the analysis publicly, with live streaming of the procedures, added legitimacy to Sarah's claims. The breakthrough came when James Morrison, the retired Air Force colonel, decided to go public with his own evidence. Inspired by Sarah's courage, he held his own press conference and released the classified documents he had kept for decades. Morrison's confirmation of the recovery program provided crucial corroboration for Sarah's story. Additional witnesses began coming forward through secure channels established by Marcus and his network. Current and former military personnel shared their own experiences with unusual materials and technology that defied conventional explanation. A pattern emerged of a massive long-term program involving multiple branches of the military and various government agencies. The pressure on Sarah intensified as more evidence emerged. Legal papers were served alleging violation of her security clearance and theft of government property. Her military pension was frozen pending investigation. Anonymous threats appeared in her email and social media accounts, warning her to retract her statements or face consequences. Despite the mounting pressure, Sarah felt a sense of relief. The secret she had carried for months was finally in the open. Scientists were demanding access to the evidence. Journalists were investigating the broader implications of the technology she had documented. The truth was spreading faster than those in power could contain it. Standing in Marcus's apartment as news coverage of the story played on multiple screens, Sarah touched the tattoo on her back. The device beneath her skin had become the center of a global conversation about transparency, scientific discovery, and humanity's future. There was no turning back now. Dr. Robert Chen's laboratory at MIT became the center of worldwide attention as the date for the public analysis approached. News crews from around the globe set up outside the building, while online streaming platforms prepared to broadcast the examination of Sarah's implanted device to millions of viewers. The scientific community was divided between skepticism and excitement about what the analysis might reveal. Sarah arrived at the laboratory, under heavy security provided by a coalition of civil rights organizations and transparency advocates. The threats against her had escalated significantly since Morrison's confirmation of the recovery program. Government agents continued their surveillance, but they were now outnumbered by journalists, activists, and curious citizens who had gathered to witness what many were calling the most significant scientific disclosure in modern history. Inside the laboratory, Dr. Chen had assembled a team of independent experts from various fields. Materials scientists, physicists, and medical professionals would all participate in the analysis to ensure complete transparency and scientific rigor. Every step of the examination would be documented and live-streamed to prevent any possibility of tampering or cover-up. The examination began with advanced imaging techniques that could analyze the implanted device without requiring surgical removal. Dr. Chen's team used magnetic resonance imaging, ultrasound, and a cutting-edge scanning system that combined multiple technologies to create detailed three-dimensional images of the object beneath Sarah's skin. The initial scans confirmed Sarah's claims about the device's size, shape, and metallic composition. The titanium container was exactly where she said it would be, positioned beneath the center of her compass tattoo. More importantly, the scans revealed that the container was not empty. Dense material was clearly visible inside, material that appeared to have unusual properties under the scanning equipment. Dr. Chen explained to the watching audience that the next step would involve using a specialized Needle to extract a small sample of the material without damaging the container or causing significant discomfort to Sarah. The procedure was similar to a biopsy, but required extreme precision to access the contents of the implanted device. As the needle entered Sarah's skin, guided by real-time imaging, tension filled the laboratory. Everyone present understood that this moment would either validate Sarah's extraordinary claims or expose an elaborate hoax. The needle reached the container, and Dr. Chen carefully extracted a microscopic sample of the material Sarah claimed to have taken from the classified military project. The sample was immediately placed under an electron microscope, and the images appeared on screens throughout the laboratory. What they revealed left the assembled scientists speechless. The material showed a crystalline structure unlike anything in existing scientific literature. The atomic arrangement defied conventional understanding of how metals should organize themselves at the molecular level. Dr. Sarah Kim, a quantum physicist from Stanford who was observing the analysis, pointed out unusual electromagnetic properties displayed by the sample. When exposed to various forms of energy, the material seemed to respond in ways that violated known laws of physics. It absorbed certain frequencies of light completely, while reflecting others in patterns that created the shimmering effect Sarah had observed in the underground facility. The most remarkable discovery came when the team attempted to determine the material's hardness and tensile strength. Despite appearing metallic, the substance displayed properties of both metal and ceramic, combined with flexibility that should have been impossible. Small fragments seemed to repair themselves when damaged, rearranging their molecular structure to maintain integrity. Dr. Chen conducted isotope analysis to determine the material's composition and origin. The results were shocking. While the base elements were familiar, combinations of aluminum, titanium, and other metals found on Earth, their isotopic ratios did not match any known terrestrial sources. The material appeared to have been formed under conditions that did not exist anywhere in our solar system. The implications were staggering. Either Sarah had somehow created or obtained synthetic materials using technology far beyond current human capabilities, or she was telling the truth about recovering fragments of non-human technology. The scientific evidence was mounting in favor of the latter explanation. Government officials watched the live stream with growing concern. The Pentagon issued increasingly desperate statements claiming the analysis was flawed and the materials were contaminated samples from conventional military equipment. However, the public nature of the examination made it impossible to dismiss or discredit the findings as easily as they had hoped. Additional witnesses continued to emerge as the scientific analysis proceeded. Dr. Williams, the lead scientist from Sarah's classified project, was found dead in his home under circumstances that authorities claimed were suicide. However, family members revealed that he had been planning to come forward with his own evidence supporting Sarah's claims. His death sent shockwaves through the community of current and former government employees with knowledge of similar projects. The mysterious death had an unexpected effect. Instead of intimidating potential witnesses into silence, it convinced several others that the time for secrecy had passed. 3 more scientists from the classified program contacted Marcus through secure channels, offering to provide additional evidence and testimony about the technology they had been working to. Understand international attention focused on the developing story as foreign governments began asking pointed questions about American possession of advanced technology that had not been shared with allies. The European Union announced an investigation into possible violations of international technology sharing agreements. China and Russia issued statements demanding access to any recovered materials for independent analysis. Sarah found herself at the center of a global political crisis she had never intended to create. Her simple desire to reveal the truth about what she had witnessed had exposed a web of secrecy involving multiple governments, defense contractors, and scientific institutions. The implications extended far beyond a single classified military project. The most dramatic moment came when Dr. Chen's team attempted to analyze the energy properties of the material sample. They discovered that tiny fragments of the substance seemed to generate measurable amounts of energy without any apparent fuel source. The effect was small but consistent, suggesting technology that could revolutionize human understanding of physics and energy production. Marcus worked around the clock to verify additional claims emerging from new witnesses. Government documents leaked by anonymous sources detailed decades of research into recovered technology, including attempts to weaponize some of the discoveries. Defense contractors had apparently made significant profits from patents based on reverse-engineered alien technology, while the public remained unaware of the source of these innovations. The pressure on government officials to provide honest answers intensified as the scientific evidence became undeniable. Congressional representatives began calling for hearings and investigations. International partners threatened to reconsider military cooperation agreements unless full disclosure was provided about the recovered technology and its implications. Sarah's legal troubles mounted as prosecutors prepared charges related to her violation of security clearances and theft of classified materials. However, public support for her actions grew stronger as the scientific analysis continued to validate her claims. Civil rights organizations filed motions arguing that her actions constituted protected whistleblowing about matters of urgent public interest. The tattoo on Sarah's back had become a symbol of resistance against government secrecy and scientific suppression. Supporters adopted similar compass designs as a sign of solidarity with her cause. The image was shared millions of times across social media platforms, often accompanied by demands for full disclosure of all government knowledge about advanced technology. As the analysis entered its second week, Dr. Chen announced that his team had identified properties in the material that could lead to revolutionary advances in computing, energy storage, and transportation. The technology Sarah had risked everything to reveal represented not just proof of non-human intelligence, but the key to solving many of humanity's most pressing challenges. The question was no longer whether Sarah was telling the truth about the classified project. The evidence was overwhelming. The question had become whether the government would continue its decades-long cover-up or finally acknowledge what it had been hiding beneath layers of classification and denial. The congressional hearing room was packed beyond capacity as Sarah Martinez prepared to testify before the House Committee on Oversight and Reform. 3 weeks had passed since Dr. Chen's public analysis confirmed the extraordinary properties of the material samples, and the political pressure for official disclosure had become impossible to ignore. Cameras from news organizations around the world focused on the witness table, where Sarah sat alongside Marcus Webb and her legal team. Committee Chairman Robert Davis opened the hearing with a statement, acknowledging the global significance of the testimony they were about to hear. He emphasized that the committee was committed to uncovering the truth about government knowledge of advanced technology, regardless of classification levels or national security concerns that might typically prevent such discussions. Sarah's opening statement was delivered with the same straightforward manner that had characterized her public appearances throughout the ordeal. She began by outlining her military service record, emphasizing her loyalty to the country and her commitment to the truth. She explained that her decision to come forward had not been made lightly, but was motivated by her belief that the American people deserved to know about discoveries that could benefit all of humanity. The questioning began with friendly committee members who allowed Sarah to tell her story in detail. She described the classified facility, the unusual security measures, and her gradual realization that she was working with technology that defied conventional scientific understanding. Her testimony was supported by the photographs, measurements, and other evidence she had collected during her time on the project. Hostile committee members attempted to discredit Sarah's testimony by questioning her motives and mental state. They suggested she had fabricated the evidence for personal gain or attention, despite the obvious personal costs she had incurred by coming forward. However, their attacks lost credibility when Dr. Chen testified about the scientific analysis that had confirmed the unusual properties of the material samples. The most dramatic moment came when Representative Johnson demanded that Sarah provide additional proof of her claims beyond the samples she had already revealed. In response, Sarah stood and asked permission to demonstrate the reality of the implanted device. Under the bright lights of the hearing room, she lifted her shirt to reveal the compass tattoo on her lower back. Using a handheld scanner provided by Dr. Chen's team, Sarah showed the committee and the watching world the clear outline of the metallic device beneath her skin. The scanner's display was projected onto large screens in the hearing room, providing undeniable visual proof that Sarah had indeed implanted physical evidence to support her claims. The revelation sent shockwaves through the hearing room and beyond. Social media exploded with images and commentary about Sarah's dramatic demonstration. The hashtag associated with her case began trending globally, as people shared the moment when she literally revealed the government's hidden secret beneath her own skin. Defense Department officials who testified later in the day found themselves in an impossible position. They could no longer deny the existence of the classified program without appearing to contradict overwhelming scientific evidence. Instead, they attempted to minimize the significance of the technology and claim that national security required continued secrecy about its origins and capabilities. General Patricia Morrison, who had overseen military research programs for 2 decades, testified that the recovered materials were indeed unusual, but argued that public disclosure would compromise ongoing security operations. She claimed that foreign adversaries were actively seeking access to the technology and that premature revelation could endanger American strategic advantages. However, her testimony was undermined when Committee Chairman Davis revealed classified documents that had been leaked to the committee, showing decades of failed attempts to reverse engineer the technology. The documents indicated that despite massive investments and years of research, military scientists had made limited progress in understanding or replicating the advanced materials. International pressure continued to mount as the hearing proceeded. The United Nations Security Council called an emergency session to discuss the implications of the American government's possession of potentially alien technology. Allied nations demanded immediate briefings about discoveries that could affect global security and scientific understanding. Dr. Elena Vasquez returned to testify about her knowledge of similar programs dating back to the 1960s. She revealed that multiple recovery operations had retrieved unusual materials from crash sites around the world, always under cover of conventional military exercises or natural disaster responses. The scope of the cover-up was far larger than even Sarah had realized. The most explosive testimony came from David Park, a former defense contractor who had worked on reverse engineering projects for 15 years. Park revealed that several breakthrough technologies in computer processing, materials science, and energy storage had actually been derived from analysis of recovered non-human technology. Companies had made billions of dollars from patents based on these discoveries, while the public remained unaware of their true origins. Park's testimony connected Sarah's revelations to broader questions about corporate responsibility and the commercialization of potentially alien technology. Consumer advocacy groups began demanding disclosure of which products contained technology derived from classified research programs. The implications extended far beyond military applications to include everyday technologies that millions of people used without knowing their true origins. Legal experts debated the unprecedented questions raised by Sarah's case. If the government possessed technology of non-human origin, did it have the right to keep such discoveries secret from the American people and the international community? What were the implications for scientific research, international law, and humanity's understanding of its place in the universe? Religious leaders offered varied responses to the emerging evidence of non-human technology. Some viewed it as confirmation of divine creation's vast scope, while others struggled with theological implications of advanced non-human intelligence. The Vatican announced that it would convene a special committee to examine the religious significance of contact with non-human intelligence. Sarah's personal life had been completely transformed by her decision to come forward. She lived under constant security protection due to ongoing threats from unknown sources. Her military pension remained frozen pending resolution of criminal charges, though public support had enabled crowdfunding that covered her legal expenses and basic living costs. The tattoo that had hidden her evidence became a powerful symbol of individual courage against institutional secrecy. Artistic representations of the compass design appeared in protests, online campaigns, and solidarity demonstrations around the world. Sarah had become an unwilling icon of the transparency movement and scientific disclosure advocacy. As the hearings continued into their second week, additional witnesses came forward with corroborating evidence. Former military personnel, defense contractors, and government scientists provided testimony that painted a picture of a vast, decades-long program to study and conceal advanced technology of unknown origin. The weight of evidence had shifted decisively in Sarah's favor. Her claims about the classified project were no longer in dispute. The only remaining questions concerned the scope of the government's knowledge, the origins of the technology, and what other discoveries remained hidden in classified programs around the world. Public opinion polls showed overwhelming support for full disclosure of all government knowledge about advanced technology. Citizens demanded answers about what their tax dollars had funded and what breakthroughs had been kept secret from the scientific community that could have benefited humanity decades earlier. Sarah sat in the witness chair, watching committee members debate the implications of her revelations. The simple decision to document unusual materials in a classified facility had exposed one of the largest cover-ups in modern history. The secret hidden beneath her tattoo had become the key that unlocked decades of official denial and secrecy. The hearing room buzzed with anticipation as Chairman Davis announced that the OZ committee would vote on whether to recommend criminal charges against government officials who had participated in the cover-up. The tide was turning, and those who had maintained the secrecy for so long were about to face accountability for their actions. 6 months after the congressional hearings concluded, Sarah Martinez stood before the United Nations General Assembly in New York City. The world had changed dramatically since she first lifted her shirt to reveal the secret the Navy never wanted seen. What began as one woman's decision to expose a classified project had transformed into a global movement for transparency and scientific cooperation. The UN had established the International Committee for Advanced Technology Disclosure, with Sarah serving as its first civilian advisor. Representatives from 195 nations worked together to develop protocols for sharing discoveries that could benefit all of humanity. The era of national governments hoarding potentially revolutionary technology and secret programs was coming to an end. Dr. Chen's laboratory had become an international research center where scientists from around the world collaborated to understand the material Sarah had revealed. The samples from her implanted device had led to breakthroughs in clean energy production, quantum computing, and medical nanotechnology. Companies were racing to develop commercial applications while ensuring the benefits reached developing nations and underserved communities. The Congressional Committee's final report had recommended criminal charges against 17 government officials who had participated in the decades-long cover-up. Several high-ranking Pentagon officials faced prosecution for violating the public trust and misusing taxpayer funds. Defense contractors were being investigated for profiting from technology they had obtained through classified programs while claiming it was their own innovation. Sarah's criminal charges had been dropped after massive public pressure and legal challenges arguing that her actions constituted protected whistleblowing. Her military pension was restored with back pay, though she donated most of the money to organizations promoting government transparency and scientific education. She had become a reluctant celebrity, speaking at universities and conferences about the importance of individual conscience over institutional loyalty. The tattoo on her back had been carefully preserved even after the implanted device was surgically removed for detailed analysis. The compass design remained as a permanent reminder of the moment when hidden truth became public knowledge. Sarah often touched the spot during speeches, remembering the fear and determination she had felt when making the decision that changed everything. Marcus Webb had won a Pulitzer Prize for his investigative reporting on the story, but he credited Sarah's courage as the foundation for everything that followed. His book about the experience had become an international bestseller, with proceeds supporting a foundation that provided legal protection for government whistleblowers and scientific researchers facing retaliation for revealing important discoveries. The most significant revelation had come during the final weeks of the congressional investigation. Additional witnesses revealed that the government possessed not just fragments of advanced technology, but complete intact vehicles that had been recovered from crash sites over several decades. These craft were being stored and studied at locations even more classified than the facility where Sarah had worked. International pressure had forced the government to acknowledge the existence of these intact vehicles and begin a process of controlled disclosure. Teams of international scientists were being granted access to study the craft, with findings shared openly rather than hidden in classified programs. The technology was decades ahead of human capabilities, offering solutions to climate change, space exploration, and energy production. Religious and philosophical communities around the world grappled with the confirmed existence of advanced non-human intelligence. The evidence suggested that Earth had been visited by beings with technology far beyond human understanding, raising profound questions about humanity's place in the universe and our responsibilities as we developed our own advanced capabilities. Sarah's personal life had found a new equilibrium after months of chaos and constant attention. She had married Marcus in a small ceremony attended by fellow whistleblowers, investigative journalists, and scientists who had supported her cause. They lived quietly when not traveling for speaking engagements and conferences, finding peace in the knowledge that they had helped change the world for the better. The compass tattoo had inspired a global movement of people getting similar designs to show solidarity with transparency and truth-telling. Sarah received hundreds of letters and emails from young people who said her example had inspired them to pursue careers in science, journalism, and government accountability. She had become a symbol of how individual courage could overcome institutional secrecy. Educational institutions around the world had revised their curricula to include studies of the recovered technology and its implications for human development. Children learned about the scientific method through analysis of the unusual materials, while ethics courses examined the moral questions raised by government secrecy and the responsibility to share knowledge that could benefit humanity. The technology derived from Sarah's revelations was already transforming daily life. New energy storage systems could power entire cities with clean, renewable sources. Medical devices incorporating the unusual materials could repair tissue damage and fight diseases that had previously been incurable. Transportation systems based on the recovered propulsion technology promised to revolutionize travel while reducing environmental impact. International space agencies collaborated on new missions designed to search for the origins of the technology Sarah had revealed. Advanced telescopes and deep space probes incorporated breakthroughs made possible by studying the recovered materials. Humanity was preparing to expand beyond Earth using knowledge gained from visitors who had already mastered interstellar travel. Sarah often reflected on the chain of events that had begun with her assignment to a classified project in an underground facility. Her decision to document unusual materials and hide evidence beneath her skin had exposed the largest cover-up in human history. The secret that powerful people had guarded for decades was now driving innovation and cooperation around the world. The naval base where Sarah had worked for 12 years had been converted into an international research facility. The underground rooms where she first encountered the mysterious fragments now hosted teams of scientists from dozens of countries working together to unlock remaining mysteries. The culture of secrecy had been replaced by open collaboration and shared discovery. Standing before the United Nations, Sarah looked out at representatives from every nation on Earth. She thought about the young sailor who had first walked into that classified facility, believing she was doing routine maintenance work. That woman could never have imagined that her decision to follow her conscience would lead to this moment of global cooperation and scientific revolution. The compass tattoo beneath her formal attire served as a permanent reminder that truth once revealed could never be hidden again. Sarah had lifted her shirt and shown the world what the Navy never wanted seen. In doing so, she had not only exposed a massive cover-up but had opened the door to a new era of human understanding and progress. As she began her address to the General Assembly, Sarah touched the spot where her tattoo remained hidden beneath diplomatic clothing. The secret was out, the truth was spreading, and humanity was finally free to benefit from knowledge that had been kept hidden for far too long. The compass had guided her to this moment, and now it would guide the entire world toward a future built on transparency, cooperation, and shared discovery.